everybody, and welcome back to another edition of KerVAM, a Doctor Who podcast where we talk normally all things Doctor Who DVDs and Blu-rays, and we will be coming back to those soon. I'm aware that the Celestial Toymaker is coming out in the next couple of weeks, so that's something that we will be discussing in the near future. But of course, we've got to focus on the new season of Doctor Who that is currently airing. Today, we're going to be talking about episode 5 of season 1, Dot and Bubble. An episode which I think it's fair to say has had a lot of discussion around it, and I feel like there's again been quite a lot of different views on this story. I feel like almost every episode of this season has been kind of divisive. I don't think there's. I guess Boob is probably the closest thing to an episode that everybody liked, but I feel like generally, like 73 Yards was a massive split. And well, let's find out from my co-hosts as to whether it's a divisive episode here on the podcast as well. So, Charlie, Dot and Bubble, good or bad?
It's good.
Good.
I liked it.
Okay.
I don't really see how anyone can really hate this episode. I feel like if you genuinely take an issue with the episode, that I don't know, it doesn't look good. I don't know. I feel like if this episode offends you, that's not a good thing. In a way. It's quite a heavy episode. Not what I was expecting. I sort of thought it would be kind of very mid, just kind of Russell T Davies, a 60-year-old man, saying social media is bad, and that would be that.
Yes.
Kind of Black Mirror. What was the Radio Times review? Black Mirror without the bite or something. I thought it would be very much like that, but it completely subverted my expectations in the last 10 minutes. Definitely, I was pretty mortified to find out that this Lindy wasn't just kind of a bit useless and a bit dim, but instead just a horrible person. And it was basically just, it was so much heavier than I expected it to be. And I was kind of, because this was 12:30 in the morning. It was, I was nodding off a little bit.
Dedicated fan. Good job. Good job. I'm not that dedicated. Sorry.
I was up at midnight watching it, and I was sort of nodding off a bit, and I was like, yeah, I know what's going to happen, though. They're going to escape, and the Doctor's going to be there, and that's kind of it. They'll just rescue Fine Time. And then his name is Coombs, and it just, that moment was just, I mean, it was horrible. It was a really good plot twist, and I immediately just sat up. It's like, oh my God, this is insane. I think it's not as good as the last two episodes, but I think that was a high bar, given I was one of those who loved 73 Yards. It was a very high bar, but I think this has definitely been one of the best 3-episode runs we've had since 2017, maybe earlier. I think the last 3 have been really strong for me. I'd say 9, maybe 8.
Yeah. I think most people would say there's only been one truly bad episode of this season, which is Space Babies. I feel like the general consistency of the series has been pretty, compared to the last 5 years of suffering, pretty good. So Ryan, do you sit in a similar camp? Did you enjoy Dot and Bubble?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I mentioned this last week. I feel like there hasn't been a bad story in this season for me. I mean, yes, Space Babies wasn't great, but it could have been a lot worse. And it's a 6 out of 10 for me. And I would say if the last 3 episodes are good, and then I think, I said this before, I think this will be the first ever modern Doctor Who series that hasn't gotten a story that's below a 6 out of 10. Because usually there's one that's kind of below the score, or a lot below the scores in case of Jodie Whittaker's era. But if this is the first series where it's just the lowest it can be is a 6 out of 10, that's really impressive. And that's never happened before on Doctor Who. And Dot and Bubble was definitely surprising. I mean, I started to figure out something was kind of weird after the halfway point. After the halfway point, something kind of clicked with me where I was just like, hang on a minute. They're all white. I haven't seen anyone that's someone who different skin color or diversity in the whole cast. What's going on here? And then of course the betrayal happened, and I was just like, and even though it was definitely shocking, that's when I started to click. I'm like, oh, I think I have a feeling where this is going to go after that murder, and the way how she interacts with the Doctor immediately afterward, and kind of wanting to avoid him, like, Oh, are they doing what I think they're doing? And of course, my suspicions were right. And
Indeed.
holy, and Russell said beforehand that his original title for this was Monsters, Monsters Everywhere, and I can now definitely see why. I think
he should have kept that. I think it's a great title, to be
definitely
honest.
should have. It's definitely much more thematically well-suited title. And I think this is a very bold story in the sense that the protagonist we're following is really the true villain of the story all along. I think that's a pretty ballsy thing to do for a Doctor Who story where our quote unquote hero that we're following is the real true monster villain all along. And I don't think an episode of Doctor Who or story has done that before. I don't know. Maybe Big Finish has done that, but in terms of TV Doctor Who, I don't think this has ever happened before where our villain was sort of the protagonist of the story.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously a rarity to have a protagonist that's not the Doctor or the companion. And I suppose we could say, Turlo back in the 80s spent 3 episodes trying to kill the Doctor. So he was our protagonist in those stories. But no, you're right. It's generally not happened in the past.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty smart move for us, a brave move for Russell to try and go on this journey with this character who we think is someone who's going to overcome, but then of course he planted those seeds beforehand, and it's so funny after that betrayal and once it clicked out, going back to it, it's clear that all the signs were definitely there. If you paid attention to the dialogue, if you paid attention, it's kind of like, okay.
Yeah, you feel like an idiot. You're like, how did I not pick this all up in the first time I watched it?
With the dark, because I read it, I was like, this is kind of like a Macra Terror-esque story where it's like this, it's like colourful, idyllic community being infested by monsters. I thought it was going to be that kind of story, but then the more it goes on, the more it reveals itself, and you're like, oh, and this is really a story about elitism, white supremacy, and just how everything is not as it seems on the surface, and that there's a really dark and just horrible underbelly underneath all the gloss and the shine of it all, really.
Yeah, exactly. There's certainly a lot of depth in there and a lot of darkness in there. I think, as you say, or I think maybe Charlie, you mentioned almost on the surface, you look at this story, you look at the promotional material about it, you're like, this is going to be a silly future world thing about social media with silly slug aliens and stuff like that. But actually, there's a whole lot darker a message in that for sort of the audience to contend with. So Bill, where did you land? Do you sort of tend to agree with the positive feeling about this episode?
Yeah, I think it's kind of complicated, isn't it? Because it's really it's as we've been saying, it's addressing a lot of stuff that is like really quite big and still kind of very relevant today and stuff, for example. So it's like a really big sort of heavy discussion to be had about I mean, I've seen some people who are people of color have objected to the way that the ending projects racism because they felt like it was, I think, because the fact that it was in what was otherwise what had the optics at least of a fairly goofy episodes, they felt like it was kind of like it should have been saved for something a bit more serious, and I get that. But yeah, I think it was still a pretty good episode. It was definitely not what I was expecting from it at all. I think we'd all just kind of been kind of looking forward to it, but at the same time kind of written it off as just, oh, it's just Russell having a bit of fun like he did with Space Babies, and not thought that there might be much, as you say, much darker implications there. So yeah, I think there's just a lot for it to try and digest in its 45-minute runtime, and I think that's the takeaway more than anything from this season, is that we've had really good episodes with some really good heavy ideas, but I don't know if the runtimes have always been that good for it. I feel like you know, what Charlie was saying last week about maybe making every episode an hour long, maybe that would be the better way to do it, because it's just, as I say, like racism. I mean, that is a massive discussion that, you know, we've all, as I say, it's still relevant and we've all got to think about and everything. And the fact that, I mean, it's, as Ryan was saying, it's peppered throughout the episodes and it's hinted at, but it's not until the last 5 minutes that you really get, like, bam, you know, like right in your face about these people are truly the monsters in this situation. And I don't know, maybe we needed a bit more time to kind of just kind of develop that, or at least hint at that a bit more. And just, I don't know, but I feel like as a whole, I think it worked pretty well, because again, it's just that thing of following this character who you think is going to get redeemed. And it's like, I mean, it's even the whole thing of like her learning how to like hug people and stuff. It sounds silly, but it's that kind of thing of learning to live without social media and stuff like that. And you think that's where the episode is going to go, and then obviously it doesn't. It does a complete 180, and you realize it's been about racism and bigotry all along, and you know, just how utterly selfish and stupid like Cindy and all the others are.
Yeah, exactly. I think, there's a lot of depth in there, a lot of different things to explore. It sort of gives the impression of one message, but then ultimately it's kind of about something else, and maybe it should have focused in more on the kind of one message that it wanted to tell us in this story, and maybe that would have been a more effective way to kind of slim it down. As I say, I think there's a lot of clues in there to a lot of different things when you watch it back that I didn't see all of those when I first watched it, and maybe that's bad on my part, but I think that's kind of the idea as the audience, is that you kind of don't necessarily take in everything, and it almost, you know, reveals to yourself your own biases or prejudices or whatever that you almost don't realize that you have, just through things that you do or don't realize by watching this episode. So I think that's a really fascinating kind of just a way of challenging the audience a little bit, and not just making it really light and easy watching TV. Like, I wouldn't want this to be Doctor Who every week. I don't think that, you know, to have that heavy sort of messaging in it, I don't think would be great for the show if it's happening literally every week. But I think having a story like this within the series does, you know, really serve a great purpose. And I mean, I when I first watched this, I got to the end of the episode and I just immediately said, this is the best episode of the series. That was like my immediate first thought from watching it. I was like, this is the best of the series that I've watched. And I think it's partially down to my love of like completely different stories, like the different world. Like this is probably the best of like creating a different world that we've seen through the series. I know it cuts some corners, but just to see something so completely different from what we're used to, you know, of normal Earth or whatever, this futuristic idea, this bubble that they're in social media and all of that, and that sort of dystopian future world type thing. I always find those sorts of storylines and those sort of settings are really just really interesting and really kind of enhance a story and give you something to buy into. And then obviously the ultimate kind of the twist of Cindy being bad and all of this kind of thing, and just the way that all played out, I thought was really, really effectively done, and really shocking that audience, as you said, Ryan. You know, the idea of our protagonist suddenly turning out to be bad, that although it is signposted, as you say, it doesn't feel really obvious that that's going to happen until quite late into the story. I mean, you know, obviously she's desperate to survive, but you still don't think it's quite going to go the way it does. And then obviously the final scene is, you know, spectacular, I think it's fair to say. I don't know, Charlie, what did you think of obviously this story is probably the second story in a row that's really noticeable that they didn't have the Doctor around. Like, Shouty was not available for filming. It's really noticeable across both of these episodes. Do you think that kind of holds the story back at all, or do you think that he's involved enough through the screen for most of the story that we kind of get away with it?
I think on its own, this would be really effective. Like, if you just look at it as an episode, it's really, really good. I love the experimental nature. It just works, you know? It's kind of... I quite like episodes that sort of play around with the idea of how it's presented in a way, like Sleep No More. While the story was not my cup of tea, it was like, you know, it's interestingly presented, like a found footage sort of thing. and I think Love and Monsters to a certain extent does that quite well as well.
Yeah.
Another
Love and
Doctor Light
Monsters.
one.
What a classic.
wasn't
What a classic.
quite as good as this, maybe a bit less dark, a bit less serious, slightly.
And well done for acknowledging that it is the first Doctor Light story, because I feel like the official Doctor Who podcast pretended that Blink was the first Doctor Light story.
Well,
and I was like, sorry, what?
Mission to the Unknown, technically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
come on, guys, you're meant to be the official podcast. Like, do better.
Anyway,
Anyway,
that did quite annoy me. I heard that and I was like, really, guys? Like, Love and Monsters is quite an obvious one.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but no, this one was. I think, in isolation, I like the whole concept.
Mm-hmm.
But right next to 73 yards, it just really takes you out of it. Like if you were watching these all in a row in a marathon, the 15th Doctor just disappears for like an hour and a half, and it's just really jarring. I think I have lots of issues with the order in which this series is being broadcast. I would put, I think I put Devil's Cord and Boom as a double bill at the start.
Okay.
And then I'd go 73 yards.
Okay.
Then Space Babies, Rogue, Dot and Bubble finale.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess you'd have to rewrite Space Babies a bit to make it not feel like the first episode of sort of the first episode of the series. But
and obviously rework the Susan Twist cameos to make a bit more sense.
Yes.
But
yes.
Because this one obviously I might as well worth mentioning now. They start to recognise properly. The Doctor mentions Castarod's the ambulance, and then Ruby. I think
still
that's
remembers.
Implying that Ruby somewhat remembers 73 yards.
Yeah. 100%. That's what it is. Yeah.
I mean, or unless she was just talking about Devil's Cord.
No, I'm sure because she didn't. She hasn't made eye contact with her in that or in the first episode. She maybe briefly saw the ambulance woman, but she then died. So she didn't. So I don't know whether that's going to become a thing or whether it's just going to be like a faint memory she has, or maybe her whole timeline's screwed and it's a Amy situation. I don't know. Who knows? Like,
it's a weird one, but I think whatever happens, like I'm pretty sure she's listed as portrait in Rogue.
Yes. Yeah. So she's going to be a face on the wall then.
I think they're going to have some sort of conversation like we need to find out what this is, because they've gone from Ruby noticing her to them both talking about her and saying, yes, I've seen her here before. Next episode, they've got to do something massive.
Yeah, I mean, I did really feel like in this episode, that moment where they see her talking, they have a little in themselves about it, and they're like, whatever, was completely that moment from Boomtown where they see the Blythe Druid sign, and then she's like, oh, that means Bad Wolf. And they're like, I've heard Bad Wolf lots of times before. Yeah. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. Think about it next week. And I was like, it's just feels exactly the same again this time around. I'm like, come on, just do something with it. Don't just give us pointless teasers.
It's very Series 1.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of stuff is very Series 1 in this series, but there's nothing wrong with that. But it does feel like those scenes in Space Babies and stuff like that. It is a bit of a pulling things out of season 1.
Whatever happens, I just don't want Daleks in the finale. That would really annoy me.
We've made it this far. And Russell's given no impression of that at all. Come on, just do something fresh, or at least bring back something old that we haven't seen for a while.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Or Fenric, or the Beast, or just anything. If they're gonna have to if they end up doing one of our least interesting choices and have it be Daleks, if they have to do Daleks, at least do something different with them. It can't just be another Dalek version. At least do something different with them.
Yeah, bring back Davros or something.
Exactly. Bring back Davros. I mean, I know they keep saying the synopsis for the finale, the greatest evil ever, and it's like,
yeah, but that's just Russell. That's how Russell talks. He just always says anything is the greatest thing ever, the worst thing ever, the most dramatic thing ever. So it doesn't really mean anything. And
I'm just a little bit worried that's gonna try and mean the Daleks and this whole Empire of Death. Is that Daleks? I hope it's not.
Please no. Yeah, exactly. Well, just bring it back into this episode a little bit more before we focus on what's to come. Bill, obviously, as I mentioned, this was a Doctor Light episode. Do we think that having Callie Cook's character kind of lead this whole story, do you think that was a strong enough performance to really push through and engage us throughout this story, or do you think it needed something extra?
No, I think she was brilliant as Lindy. I think she was really. I think she did amazing. Just kind of. In being kind of like that spoiled kind of rich brats to start with, and then obviously as we go on, and then there's that reveal where she like sacrifices Ricky September and everything, you realize that she is just an awful person, really. And she completely pulls it off and makes it look so, it's almost like her character is, it's like her character is not even pretending to be evil. She just is evil. That's just her natural kind of being. You know, that's her personality, is just like being racist and stuff, and not caring that, you know, the doctor's trying to save her and really does mean well and stuff. And she just is so bigoted and set in her ways that she can't look past, you know, the colour of his skin and stuff. I mean, it's something which I think, you know, there's a lot of great actors out there, but like, any actor could try and do it, but I don't know if they could pull it off quite as well as she does, because, as I say, it's got to be like the right balance of being irritating and annoying to start with, but then you're still kind of invested in, like, you're still kind of wanting her to get out until you find out, you know, who she really is, sort of thing. So you are kind of rooting for her along the way. So it's just really fascinating, I think, that they've decided to have a main character essentially who is just completely just an awful person beyond redeeming, and just it's just really fascinating because, as you say, it's really challenging the audience, and it's just saying like, no, this is not just another bog standard Doctor Who story where they all go off into the sunset, the Doctor saves them, etc. This is something where, you know, she really is an awful person. You know, it's not an act. She's not doing it to be like popular or anything. She's doing it because she's just that evil. And it just props to Callie Cook for just pulling that off so well and just making it seem almost natural in a way, you know, just like that kind of very kind of complex character in a way. Just it's such an incredible performance. It really is. And I'm not surprised that, you know, Russell has kind of praised her and everything, because I think she does deserve all the praise, because she basically, as you say, had to carry this whole episode, because as much as I do think the Doctor and Ruby win it far more than I was expecting them to be, like I thought they were literally just going to turn up at the end, but they were actually still there on the screen throughout all of it. But she's still carrying it and doing a really good job with it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree. I think it was a great performance, and sort of combination of it being well written in that sense of she's a bad person, but you initially feel like she's a bad person. Then Russell does just enough to make it feel like you want to pull for her just a little bit, just to push through the story, and then boom, twist it all on you towards the end. I think that was really effectively done. And as you say, her performance really, I think, carried the story because it needed to. You know, I think she was probably in every single scene of this story. I think pretty much. You know, she was the main character of this whole story, and so and that is an unusual thing in Doctor Who for the main character to be not one of the Doctor or the companion. And so I think, you know, she pulled that off really, really well, and that was really, really good to see.
I think, as good as Callie Cook was, it's not the performance that sticks with you the most, though.
Yes, it's not. I was just going to come on to, that's exactly what I was going to come on to. So what did you think? Shouty at the end?
Incredible. I mean, that's the first scene he filmed after the giggle, wasn't it?
I know. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
That is his first scene. They bring him on set and is like, this is what you got to do. Smash it out of the park.
He just pulled it off so well. It's like, for the first time ever, he's just completely helpless, and he literally can save these people. He literally has the TARDIS right there. All he has to do is go in, and they just won't. And that's just a complete first for the Doctor. And, you know, he's been traveling thousands of years. This is the first time it's ever happened. And, you know, we've got an actor who's played the Doctor for all of like 10 minutes, and he's already pulling this off. It's crazy. I think he's sort of rapidly moving up my list of Doctors. You know, he's really good.
It's so weird that he did the giggle in the summer of 2022. Then he did a few months break to do sex education, and then this was the first thing he does after that break. That's really impressive for Shouty. And I've got to say, this is one of the most haunting and most bold and daring and sad endings to a Doctor Who story ever, because, and the thing is, despite how awful these people are, he does engage. He genuinely does want to say them, despite how messed up they are, and they just won't. And I think that's really haunting, the fact that he can say them, and yet they just don't want to be said. They'd rather be in their own sort of bigoted echo chamber mentality than they just rather be as they. I think they'd just rather face oblivion as they are, rather than be saved by someone they deem inferior to them. And it's so. Honestly, I was, after it finished, I was just sat there for 15 minutes in silence. I was just like, I was just like, wow, they ended it like that. It's again, I think this is one of the boldest Doctor Who stories they've ever done, and I thought 73 Yards was bold. Again, we've had bold stories in a row. I mean, they kept saying in the run-up to this season that this is going to be the boldest Russell has ever been, and they sure weren't lying. They weren't lying.
Exactly.
Because, and they also said in the up-running to this that, like, Shouty's performance in episode 5 is going to stay with you. And again, they definitely weren't lying with that, because it did stick with me, honestly. And some people have been saying, like, this is his Doctor moment, was that final scene, and I could definitely see that, even though it is definitely in a moment that's pretty haunting and depressing. Which is, and it's, again, all props to Shouty Gatwa for just pulling it all off. And you're absolutely right, Charlie. I think he is starting to rise up on my rankings of Doctors. I don't know exactly where he's going to land. I think I need to see a bit more of the season until I get like a definitive placement for him. But he's definitely going to be in the top half. I can 100% say that now. He's definitely going to be in the top half for me. So, and honestly, I know Rogue is going to be a bit more light and fun. We're going to see definitely a more light performance from Shouty for a good chunk of it. But I'm interested to see what he's going to be like in the finale, because if they keep saying like it's going to be heavy and they keep saying this, I'm curious to know how many. I'm interested to see how many facets of the Doctor he's willing to just unleash in this 2-part finale. What he's going to bring to it. It's actually got me more excited about the finale, just to see what Shouty is going to deliver.
Definitely, yeah. No, I'm certainly looking forward to what that's going to bring for the rest of the series. It feels like we've only had 3.5 episodes of Shouty really so far, so it'll be nice to have another 3 proper episodes with him in the stories. It'll be really, really good. But I think it's really interesting, just picking up on the whole sort of racism side of things, and the fact that Russell, rather than almost doing the more obvious thing of taking the Doctor back to the 1500s or to the past, to the slave trade or whatever, and using that as a sort of vehicle to show off racism and showing the Doctor being persecuted for his colour, almost he kind of struck it closer to home by picking a futuristic society and saying, actually this isn't just a thing of the past, but actually this is a thing of the present and the future, and we need to do something about that. I thought that was a really clever way of doing it. And I also think it's quite interesting. I don't know what you think about this, Charlie, but I feel like we saw this more directly in this episode, and only 5 episodes into Shooty's run, than we did at any point of a female Doctor, and a female Doctor being sort of persecuted for being a woman. We saw that in the Witchfinders episode, but I don't think there was really any other episodes where that was a particular point of the story. So I don't know. Do you think that it's a good thing we're picking up on this so early? Do you think it's going to become more of a running theme? And how's it compared to the Chibnall era?
I think Chibnall was just a bit scared, honestly, to write sexism. I think to be fair, I would be too. If I was, a man showrunner, I would be, somewhat wary about writing sexism because, you haven't experienced it. I think Russell was really bold for doing what he did.
Yes, because he is a white man, and I know there are some people who've been critical of. It's a white man, a white production team doing all of this, and I can see, why they would get criticism for that as well.
I think it'd be a lot worse if it was not well handled, but I'd say the majority of people think it was well handled. I don't know. I've seen a lot of people just say it was quite good in that sense. I don't know.
Mhm.
I think do it again, but not like, don't do it every other episode.
No, for sure.
It's too heavy to have like every second or third episode of Doctor Who. Because at the end of the day, it's Doctor Who. It's not.
Yeah.
At its core, I don't think it should be incredibly serious like that. But I think it should.
Yeah.
It should touch on things like that. But
Yeah.
Yeah. About the Whittaker era, though, I do wish it was done a little bit more, because it's kind of the first female Doctor, and we kind of didn't really have any of that. Like, there's no meaning to it. I think I've been thinking about this the other day. The 16th Doctor needs to be a woman, because I think
I always thought that the next Doctor after Jodie needs to be a woman, just to be like, it's not a mistake that it was a woman and now it's back to a man. I feel like we need a woman again soon to kind of make that clear.
Yeah, because it's kind of Russell saying, if he casts another man, it's kind of Russell saying, yeah, that didn't work. I really don't want that to happen. I mean, we have had 14. He doesn't really count though, because it's David Tennant.
No, exactly.
We've had one Doctor in between Jodie and the 16th, and really, and I think, I mean, we're still a few years away from that. Hopefully.
Hopefully, exactly.
Hopefully we get season 3 greenlit soon. But
we will. I have absolutely no doubts about that. I just hope that Shooty's going to be in it, because they're not going to film it for a while, and maybe he's already done his regeneration scene and we just don't know. Wouldn't that be hilarious? Or
I find that crazy. For all we know, Shooty could literally regenerate next Christmas.
Yes. Yeah. Legit.
That's insane. Yeah. Hopefully not. Hopefully it's Troughton rule again, if not another season. Because if Shooty has 3 seasons of 8 episodes each and 23, 4, 5, 6 Christmas specials, let's say.
Yeah.
He's had 28 episodes. Jodie had 31.
It's even less than that, yeah.
Yeah, Colin Baker had 31 too. He's had less episodes than Colin Baker, if that's the case.
There you go. Well, Russell just needs to make more blooming episodes in a season, honestly. Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, has season 2 been confirmed to be 8 episodes? Because for all we know, it could be 10.
I'm pretty sure it has. I think based on the sort of filming pictures and directors and things like that, it is unfortunately going to be 8 episodes again. So I assume they could reassess that for season 3, but I kind of get the vibe that they're just going for big budget 8 episodes and then let's cut them up to bits so they're only 42 minutes long, rather than trying to get more episodes into a season, which is a bit of a shame, I think.
I will say, even though I said at the beginning how there hasn't been a below 6 out of 10. I will say that the one thing I will say, even though I'm saying that, and I guarantee that the lowest up this season will get is a 6 with the case of Space Babies, and how it's been consistently good. I don't think this is going to be one of my personal favourite seasons. I think it's because of how they formatted this season.
Yeah. I've been thinking about this a lot.
9 episodes, 8 normal episodes and a Christmas special, so 8 and 9. That's not really enough time to be accustomed to get to know the Doctor and companion. And I will admit, I kind of wish in between Space Babies and the Devil's Cord we had 4 or 5 extra episodes where it's just standard fun adventure stories, like akin to something like, I don't know, Unicorn and the Wasp, or Tooth and Claw, or something like that. Just something more like fun
standard Doctor Who.
Yeah, exactly.
It feels like every episode this series has just been kind of experimental almost, and we haven't really got a rhythm of normal Doctor Who in this series at all.
Yeah, and I feel like the only 2 normal ones we've had to a certain extent have been Church on Ruby Road and Space Babies. They felt the most standard. And I know people will say Devil's Cord is standard, but
no, it's not. It's a musical, basically.
While the plot is definitely standard, Maestro as a villain doesn't fit into your standard like villain of the week story. Maestro is far too bigger than that, so that was definitely experimental. And Boom was experimental. 73 yards, Dot and Bubble. I felt like we need some more adventure stories, like Robot of Sherwood, for example. I mean, I know not everyone loves Robot of Sherwood. I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it, and I think we need some stories like that in the first So that I think it would be better if like the first half was standard fun adventure stories, and your last half is like your big bold experimental.
I mean,
And
that's
then a
series
couple of
3.
extra episodes. Series 3.
Series 3.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Series
exactly.
3 is literally the first half is just kind of standard Doctor Who, and then it goes
Yeah,
straight
that's
to,
Hmm.
Family of Blood, Human Nature, Family of Blood, Blink, and then the 3-part finale is just
Yeah. Legit. Yeah.
And also with like series 4, like the first half of 2/3 is basically big action blockbuster adventure stories, and then the last 4 stories were basically all big epic 10 out of 10 stories. Science of the Library 2-parter, Midnight Turn Left, and the Stolen Earth 2-parter. And feel like if they had formatted like first half adventures, last half experimental, and just had more episodes, 50 to 60 minutes each, I feel like this could have been one of the very best seasons ever if they just had more episodes and a longer running time for each story. But
Yeah.
it's kind of making me a little bit worryful about the future of Doctor if we're starting to get less and less episodes. Because even with Jodie Whittaker's, I felt like they were kind of pushing it a bit with 11 episodes, 10 normal ones, and 1 special 11. I just feel like even then that's kind of not enough, really. And and it's just gone a little bit low each time. And I feel like they need to format it better in the future. Even despite how solid a lot of these stories are, I just wish they had just formatted it better.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely think that there's things to improve on, and I think the next 3 episodes are going to need to be very, very good to kind of put this as one of my absolute top seasons, like up there with Series 9, Series 5, Series 4, Series 1, those kind of ones. Like, I don't think it's there at the moment. It's, it's solid mid-tier, but I don't think it's absolutely, at the top. And so, Bill, one of the key things which I've noticed in this series is almost the lack of development of the Doctor and Ruby and their relationship, because we've only really had them in kind of 3 episodes actually together. So given that we literally have 1 episode and then it's the 2-part finale, do you feel like we really know the characters of the Doctor and Ruby that well so far?
I mean, I think the biggest issue with that is the fact that Russell basically skipped over the usual kind of companion introduction. Like, you still had space babies, but then it's like in a Devil's Chords, they say, "Oh, it's been 6 months since I last saw you," and stuff. And it's just kind of that threw me out of it, because I was thinking, but this is episode 2, and yet what's happened in the meantime? I know they can say, "Oh, well, these comics and books and all this lot happened in the meantime," and that's fair enough. But
All the expanded media got to
we?
bring the dollars in.
Yeah, why can't we see some of that on screen instead? Because I know, I get why Russell's kind of moving away from the established companion formula of, like, especially in new series, where every time a new companion was introduced, it was literally, right, they need to go to the sort of thing, or something like that. And to kind of get away from that, I understand why Russell's done it, because he probably just thinks, it's something which has been done so many times with so many companions that there's only so many more times you could really do it before it just becomes too boring and stale and just samey, really. But at the same time, I feel like there was kind of like a reason why we had stuff like that, because, as you say, it just develops the companion's relationship with the Doctor more, and it allows us to see what this new Doctor is like, what this new companion is like, all this lot. I mean, if you compare it to series 1 with Chris Eccleston and Billy Piper, or series 5 with Matt Smith and Karen Gillan, those series are all, it's very clear that it's all about introducing a new Doctor, a new companion on new adventures, sort of thing. And yet with this, it's more just, oh, what can we do that's kind of a twist on a normal Doctor Who story? Like, I've enjoyed Boom, I enjoyed 73 Yards, I enjoyed Dot and Bubble for the most part, but it's just, I mean, I enjoy the experimental side of things, but at the same time, kind of sometimes, is it not just right to sometimes have a bog standard Doctor Who story there
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Just even if it's something as throwaway as Space Babies, it's still something which is there to introduce us to these new characters, and especially when you launch into a whole new international audience, you really need to like just introduce the whole show as a concept to like anyone who might be watching in Europe or America or wherever in the world. And the fact that they kind of haven't really done that, they've still kind of gone, oh well, you all kind of know what Doctor Who is, so we don't really need to spend too much time kind of spent on that. And it's just, I don't know if that's the right course of action to take with this new international approach.
Yeah, I've sort of seen, read a few things on Twitter about this and some thoughts about this, that the kind of whole approach to launching this new era has been kind of a weird one because, firstly, as you say, the series hasn't been very standard. So almost if somebody watched this season, would they, if never having seen anything to do with Doctor Who, would they really fully understand what the show is, what it's about, what it really is? Like, what's the Doctor doing? Who is his character? Why does he just turn up on random places and do stuff? Like, I don't think any of that's really been that well established in this season. And then you've also got the problem of, you almost need to have watched the 60th anniversary specials to quite know what's going on in this season. And there's, stuff with Maestro that link back to the Toy Maker and The One Who Waits and Shouty being in the Giggle and all of this. And then to understand what's going on in the 60th anniversary, you need to go and have watched the whole of Series 4. Like, it's almost, that doesn't feel like a great jumping on point for a new fan. And I get that Russell probably was a little bit stuck because he knew he had to come in for 2023 and he wanted to do something for the 60th. But I almost feel like that should have happened completely separately, what we're now having, rather than it having any real connection. And then, as you say, Bill, having just a more, at least early on, a more straightforward series of Doctor Who that really just establishes who this character is, what they're about, and just what the show is about, which I feel like has been a bit lacking in this series so far. And one other thing I noticed, Charlie, in all of this series is the lack of the TARDIS. Like, they spent millions of pounds on this brand new massive TARDIS set, and we've barely seen it. And we know in the finale we're getting the memory TARDIS as well, so they'll be on that rather than the TARDIS set. So, like, do you think that they've just decided to cut all the TARDIS scenes because they need to cut the time down, or where are they? Because I feel like it's such a waste of such a good set.
I really don't know. I've been watching some Matt Smith era recently, and the scenes in the TARDIS, they're amazing.
They spend so much time in the TARDIS, it's great. 11th hour, Amy in the TARDIS, it's so good.
And the end of the episode, they're all just talking in the TARDIS, and you almost feel like you're there, just in the TARDIS with them, and it just feels so cozy. You just like have a real like sense of family with these characters. You just don't. I don't really feel like we've got that because, firstly, we don't see the TARDIS, and the TARDIS looks nice. Like, I think it looks a bit. It doesn't have as much character yet because we've barely seen it, and there's not been much of it because the interior hasn't appeared in 73 Yards or Dot and Bubble, and it barely did in Boom. It's like,
I don't think they actually went. We didn't actually see them inside it in Boom. I think they were just standing in the doorway, weren't they?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because Ruby, that was.
So it's literally Devil's Cord is the last time we've had a proper scene inside the TARDIS, which is just crazy to me.
It's really weird. I think. Just give five minutes at the start and end. Just get them to talk in the TARDIS about random stuff. Like,
that's where we really build those characters, is through moments like that, and they feel so like they've just been cut out of this series.
And since Doctor Who's being mainly made for streaming now, it's like just give 10 extra minutes to the episode. Like, what's the big deal?
Actually, I don't get it.
Yeah, it's really weird.
It's so funny. You mentioned about you're watching some aspects. I was watching some Baldy stories, and some of his best scenes are in the TARDIS.
Exactly.
Like all the Heaven Sent stuff.
Yeah, him and Clara in Dark Water when they have that moment. That's so good. Such a good scene.
Yeah, just whenever he's talking to Clara or Bill or Nardole in the TARDIS, or if he's just on his own, like in his final ever scene as the Doctor. It's so many great scenes in the TARDIS whenever he's up on the top levels.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. They've got a multi-level TARDIS again.
Yeah, and they're not using it.
So much with it. You could do so much storytelling with that. And they haven't done since Devil's Cord. They've done one little neat trick in Devil's Cord where they go to a door and then they come out of the door wearing new clothes. And I'm like, oh, that's cool.
But that was the last time we saw it.
We've seen of the TARDIS.
They literally haven't done an interior scene since
I just feel like we need a lot more of that. And it's such a shame because it is such a really good TARDIS. It's a massive improvement over Jodie Whittaker's, and yet they've hardly got time to be with it. And again, I think they should have had more episodes, and they should have just had the first half be the standard one. You know, as you said, to get people into Doctor Who, like, this is what it's like, these are what the standard Avengers are like. And then in the last half, it's like, okay, now we've done the easy stuff. Now we can do the experimental stuff. And I feel like that's how they should have done it. And including the special, this should have been like 13 to 14 episodes at least. But 9 is not enough.
No, I think that's becoming ever clearer every week, and especially when they're 45 minutes or less as well. I think that's just really, unfortunately, hurting the show at the moment. And you know, maybe they'll make the episodes longer in the next season because, as we've said, every single episode of this series could have been an extra 10 minutes long. I think that's pretty clear. So I'm sure they could do that next season if they realise maybe we should do that. But let's just wrap up this discussion by briefly talking about Rogue, the episode that's coming this week. So Charlie, are you more excited for Rogue or the trailer for the finale?
I think.
I mean, to be fair, the trailers are quite bad for the series at the moment. I feel like the next time trailers have nothing in them.
Literally. I think the next time trailer is going to be. I think next time trailers, they're really bad because, like, back in the Moffat era, they literally spoiled the entire episode. And it was well, what's the point in watching it? But in the Whittaker era, they were really dreadful. And it was like, well, that's just, there's nothing there. It's like a few shots. There's nothing. It's, they've sort of been the same, I think, in this era. It's kind of just, there's not much here. I wasn't excited for 73 Yards. Or Boom, really. The one for Boom wasn't even that great. It's like...
No, you're right.
I just... Even though those are my two favourite episodes of the series so far, it's like I wasn't excited for those because of the next time. I was excited because of what I'd heard about them. So I'm going to say the episode. I think it's nice to just return to form, have, you know, a time-travelling villain and, you know, the Doctor and Ruby. I mean, apparently, according to synopses, the Doctor and Ruby aren't together much in this episode.
Yeah, I saw that as well.
Even more because
because we've had so much of them together so far in the series. Like, honestly,
we need a break. It's that's worried me a bit. But I'm really intrigued as to this Rogue. I know people have been saying it's Captain Jack recast.
It's not. It's not going to be Captain Jack. No chance. Absolutely
I think a Rogue Time Lord. I wouldn't hate that. Just a random Time Lord.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of the synopsis says, you know, there's going to change the Doctor forever or something. Meeting Rogue. I don't quite know what that vague. Well, very true. Yeah, Mr. Hype Merchant. Yeah.
I think like it's going to be at least some sort of like time agent that's gone rogue. That's what it is, probably.
Yeah.
But I mean, I saw the screenshot of this. There's this one scene where it's Shouty standing in his outfit, and then there's like a blue sort of hologram face of the 10th Doctor next to him.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what controversy that's gonna bring up.
Apparently on Twitter, I think someone close to production said that it's going to make the fans scream when they see that scene, and I'm wondering.
Morbius Doctors.
Yeah, all the time. And if that's the thing, I've heard people theorizing that this, like the Fugitive Doctor, Rogue could be a special hidden incarnation of the Doctor.
Yeah, that would be entertaining. Because that would get the fans excited, wouldn't it?
I think there's one thing like acknowledging the timeless child, and there's another just doing it yourself. It's like, just give it a rest. I don't like. I sound like a party pooper here. I don't like the idea of the Morbius Doctors. I think they're incarnations of Morbius. That's what it is. I don't know. Fugitive Doctor, Jo Martin was really good, but like the way I see it, she's like the 1000th Doctor. She's so ridiculously far in the future. She's millions of years old. She doesn't remember being Jodie Whittaker, and that's all it is.
Fair enough.
I don't know. I mean, as I say, it could be a time agent. It could be just some random bounty hunter. It could be another Time Lord, or as one of the timeless Doctors, like the Fugitive Doctor. And some people have theorized this as well, and honestly would be pretty bored that if it's just a new character, what if it's just a new character and they're setting Rogue up to be like a new love interest for the Doctor, like River Song was, and that's gonna be.
I think there'll be some flirting at the very least.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There will be.
Yeah, that's gonna be pretty bold, and if they go that way, I think that will be definitely an interesting direction to go, and they keep talking about how great Jonathan Groff was to work with during it, so. It's always possible that they could be setting it up to bring him back later on to be the next River Song or Captain Jack. So it's definitely a possibility. Having the Doctor and Ruby separated again does not excite me at all. And the idea of the monsters, they're just these bird people. I'm just like, whatever. But at least this is going to be done by new writers, because Kate Herron and Bryony Redmond are both writing this. So it'd be interesting to see, because all the previous episodes were done by previous writers. So it'd be interesting to see what a completely different writing duo will bring to this. Because I know Kate Herron was famous for doing Loki for Marvel. So and Loki has often been cited as Marvel's Doctor Who, so I'm very curious about how she's going to, what she's definitely going to bring to Doctor Who to itself, and if it's great, then I wouldn't be surprised if they're trying to get her back to write more episodes.
Oh, absolutely, and it is, of course, I think it's the first episode since 2020 to not be written by a former showrunner of the show, like Can You Hear Me or something like that, I think is the last episode from series 12. Which is just absolutely insane and really bad, frankly. And I'm looking forward to next season where we're going to get a lot more variety in writers. Russell's already said that. I don't think it was necessary for him to write 6 out of 8 episodes of the series. I really think that was not needed. But, he obviously wants to make his mark on the show. So just to finish up, Bill, are you excited for Rogue? Is there anything getting you hyped for this week? Or is it a bit more of it'll be okay, but let's focus on the finale?
Yeah, I think the focus is going to be mainly on the finale, but I'm kind of interested in Rogue. I mean, it's a more traditional Doctor Who story, even though it's written by new people. So that'll be kind of like pretty good. But yeah, it's mostly the finale and just wondering what is going to happen with like this new Tales of the TARDIS episode that's been leaked or something. And kind of wondering how that's going to tie into the finale. I strongly suspect that it might be. I think I saw someone on Twitter say that it could be like they literally have the 15th Doctor recount the events of Pyramid of Mars to Mel because Sutekh is coming back in the finale. And if that was the case, then I'd be completely here for it, because Sutekh is definitely long overdue a return. I mean, it's just unreal. I mean, he's literally not had anything since 1975, and he's supposed to be one of the more powerful Doctor Who villains, and it's just crazy that he's not had more appearances. So I hope it's Sutekh or someone of that caliber anyway. I really don't want it to be the Daleks or Cybermen or any of the usual suspects, because it'll just be too safe, too expected, to just. I mean, I don't mind. Like, I like the Master. I like all of them, but they've just been so overly used for the past however many years it's been now, that we just need some kind of break, even if it's just for this one season. Then they all come back next season. Then it's at least some kind of break for them, I think. But yeah, definitely more looking forward to the finale, but I'll be interested to check out Rogue anyway and see what happens, see if there's what's going on with the Doctor's faces, and if there's going to be a sort of what that review was teasing and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it'll be nice just to have a more normal episode of Doctor Who to enjoy before we get into the finale craziness and chaos that I'm sure is going to ensue, and just generally lots of stuff going on. So I'm looking forward to it all, really. I think it's fair to say. But before we go, of course, we must touch on the very sad news that William Russell passed away yesterday as we're recording this. that was confirmed at the age of 99, which is absolutely insane. Of course, he played Ian Chesterton, one of the first companions of the first Doctor, way back in 1963, and we got to see him turn up for a cameo in 2022 in The Power of the Doctor, which I think set a world record for like the longest time between appearances of the same sort of actor as the same character, which is also absolutely crazy. So, Charlie, William Russell, is it fair to say he's a bit of a legend?
Absolutely. I mean, I think we'd also been dreading this day for a few years now.
Yeah.
It's always a sad day when, you know, a very significant, prominent Doctor Who alum passes away. It's a sad one. I mean, when I found out the news, I haven't finished it yet because it is 6 parts. I'm watching The Chase.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, like
after
Richard Franklin, it was not Sea Devils, Time Monster.
Okay.
It's always, so I'm watching The Chase right now, and I think it's safe to say for the first 2 seasons, he was very much the main character of Doctor Who.
Yeah,
like,
really?
The Doctor wasn't really, it was like he wasn't even in it that much. It was very much Ian and Barbara with a focus. And I think, William Russell is absolutely just one of the founding fathers of Doctor Who. And without him, the show wouldn't be where it is today. He's like the template for a companion, literally the first sort of new companion ever. And just one of the best of all time, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with all of that. Ryan, what are your sort of fondest memories of William Russell and the character of Ian Chesterton?
Just lots of great moments. I think the first story I watched of that year was the Daleks, the second story, and just showing like how he was definitely the most rational member of the group, always wanting to make sure everyone was safe, but the Doctor being the wild card, which is unexpected for the Doctor, being that he's always wanted to get deep into trouble, and Ian just calling the Doctor out on it is just brilliant. And I think him and Barbara were the companions that gave the Doctor his humanity. It was really, if it weren't for Ian and Barbara, the Doctor would have been a completely different character. And William Russell brought just such a rich personality to Ian. And him and Barbara, those two are my top 5 favourite companions of all time. I think they're just they were the companion template, and it was such a delight to see him coming back for How the Doctor, which was sounding going to be his final time as well. And I'm not gonna lie, it did make me just not. I haven't felt this bad just since Elizabeth Slade, and it's and funny. And after it finished, after the news was announced, I actually went back and I think I watched. What was it? I think it was the Reign of Terror. I think it was the Reign of Terror that I watched, and seeing how just all 4 of them, how they worked as a team, and just how much they contributed to Doctor. I'd also watched the Romans as well, which was a really interesting about how they split the Doctor, the companions together. Doctor and Vicky did their own thing, and Ian and Barbara did their own thing without either one of them noticing what had happened. I thought it was so weird, and I think the Romans, despite having some comedic tones to it, it just shows how capable Ian and Barbara are on their own without the Doctor. It's such a brilliant story, and they were such an iconic pairing. William Russell is truly one of the greats. He's up there with the likes of Jacqueline King, Elizabeth Sladen, Nicholas Courtney as a true Doctor Who legend in his own right. And even though he is sadly gone, he will never, ever be forgotten.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And Bill, do you think it's fair to say that, without William Russell and what he brought to the character of Ian, that the show might not be what it is today? He made that much of a contribution to those very first years.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as you've all kind of said, he was really the template for a lot of the companions that have come since. He was just, yeah, he was the kind of action man for the show's early years, because obviously William Hartnell just couldn't do that stuff himself. And so they needed someone who was much more just fit and just able to, just do that kind of stuff. But also, he wasn't just like an action man. Obviously, there was that kind of like science teacher aspect to him, and how you'd have those nice little moments with him and the First Doctor where they'd be like in the Web Planets, where they're kind of examining that pool of acid or whatever it is and stuff like that. And even though it's not in a great story, it's still a very good moment, because it's just a nice little kind of character moment between the two of them. And it says a lot about how, the First Doctor really couldn't have cared less about Ian and Barbara to begin with. And yet, by the end of it, I mean, I also rewatched The Chase today, actually, Charlie. And I really thought it was, pretty good. And just that kind of final moment of the Doctor's reaction, that he's so upset, but he's also like really cross with them about wanting to leave and go back to their own time and everything. And then like the fact that he still does it because like Vicky says something like like it's their choice, it's their decision. And it's like the Doctor kind of, it's almost like in his head the Doctor goes, oh yes, they're my friends, of course I've got to do what they, what will make them happy, sort of thing, even if I don't think it's going to end well, sort of thing. And I think that says a lot about how, as you were saying, Ryan, just how Ian and Barbara changed the Doctor, made him into the hero that we all know and love today. And he just, Ian was just a great character, really great. And William Russell was just able to just have so many, be able to portray there's so many different aspects of him, the science teacher, the action man. He had the little like witty retorts to William Hartnell's First Doctor at times, and the relationship that he had with Jacqueline Hill's Barbara as well. And it was just really lovely. And I think if it hadn't have been for all four of those original regulars, I think Doctor Who, I mean, it could still have worked, but it wouldn't have worked in the same way with other actors, I think. And so it would be very different to what we know today without all four of them together. And it was just a real special moment, I think, in history of TV as a whole, that they all came together and did that show. And obviously we're still talking about Doctor Who over 60 years later. And I think it's just a real testament to what William Russell and all of them at the time kind of did. And just, he helped to set the show going. He helped to establish what a Doctor Who companion is. And he's just played such an important role in the show's history. And that's definitely never going to be forgotten.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'll say that William Hartnell was the man that gave us the Doctor. I think William Russell and Jacqueline Hill gave the show its heart. I think it was then that the connection that we have to the show, I think we owe it to both of them that we were able to connect with these characters and make us connect with the Doctor. And so I don't think the show would have been the character of the Doctor would have been the same without them.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Certainly we will always remember William Russell. What a guy. Lived to 99 years old. I just think that's pretty crazy. And made such an impact on the show. Of course, we saw him in An Adventure in Space and Time in a very brief cameo as well, which is really cool to see. Just to see that character from such a long time ago appear in even just the shortest of scenes in Power of the Doctor, I thought was very, very special. So certainly, as you say, Ryan, although whether it's Elizabeth Sladen, whether it's Richard Franklin this year, whoever it is, we'll always remember all these different actors that brought such great moments and such joy to us all as fans of Doctor Who. And I think it's absolutely fantastic. So yeah, we'll always remember William Russell. But that is just about all we've got time for this week's podcast. Do remember to check us out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. The podcasts are also on YouTube on my channel EMS Productions, and you can follow us on Twitter at KerVAM Pod. We'll be back this time next week to discuss Rogue and preview the finale, because I'm sure we're going to have some exciting things hinted at by then. So do join us then next week. But for now, it is goodbye.